let's do a June wrap up. Hopefully this isn't too late in the month. I kind of kept putting it off, and I lost a book, and so I was like, oh, when I find that book, I'll film it. I'm not gonna find it. I just need to give up, and it's time to film this June wrap up. Somehow I read 12 books this month, which feels kind of weird because at the beginning of the month I had read like nothing, and then by the end I'm looking back and I've read 12, and that just seems like a lot. I read a few of them physically, and then a lot of them I listened to this month, whether it's through my library or Libro FM. I'm part of their influencer program, so I get to listen to some of the newer releases, and I'll go over which ones those are, but you'll know. I would say that this month was an okay reading month. I had like 2 or 3 that I really liked, and then the rest were just, they were books. You know, like some of the months you just don't read anything like mind-blowing. It's fine. I've always got July, even though July's almost over. I'm kind of in the same boat, but maybe August. The first book that I read in June was Middle Tide by Sarah Crouch, and I love a book within a book. It's one of my favorite like plot points. The main character, he writes a novel and it kind of just flops, and so he moves back home to a small town in Washington. He inherits his dad's old cabin and he starts fixing it up. A couple years after he comes back, somebody's actually murdered with the same plot as in his book that flopped. So we're following how, of course, he's a suspect, and we're really getting to know how this all happened. This is definitely slow, and you have to appreciate the characters and the way that they've all changed, which I think is definitely the best part. There's so much character development, but it's slow, and sometimes I wanted it to be faster, but I did just chug through this nice and slow. I read this also kind of on my Kindle and through my book of the month copy. Overall, I liked it. I think I rated it like 4 stars. I thought the atmosphere was really great, and it was fun being in Washington State. I think that's an atmosphere that is always just really good. I got to reread Yellowface by Arv Kuang for my library book club, and it was so interesting because I remember this guy, he was like, who even read this book? Like, everyone's kind of just dogging on it, and I'm like, I love this book so much. And it was so weird to hear him say, like, who even read this book? Because to me, it was like all over the internet. Everywhere I looked, everyone was raving about it. Now, the library book club, everyone is like 60 to 70, which is fine and great, but it was just interesting to really see the difference of who's in the book club and the different kind of readers that we all are. So it's probably my favorite book that we've picked for the library book club. I loved it. I wouldn't stop talking. Definitely my chattiest book club yet, but it was really fun. And again, I've already read this. I think it was even better the second time, and I would so highly recommend it. I love Arv Kuang, and I think she is an absolute genius. Like, this book, I would hate to say it's funny. I know it's satirical. It's funny, and just like the disbelief of the absolutely absurd and oftentimes disgusting things that people are saying. I don't know. It really hit. It was so interesting to hear everyone else talk about it in their perspective, and I will read everything that Arv Kuang writes. On the track of book clubs, I actually read The Gap and the Gang. This is one of my work book clubs, so it's kind of an out of my comfort zone kind of pick. I actually like self-help. I know it's kind of a red flag, but this one, it was okay. It was like 3 stars, mid. What's nice about this book is it talks about how, you know, don't always just look for the future. Like, take the time to look back because you've done so much, which I think is a great message. I just wasn't really my time for the message, I guess. But I think everyone else in the book club really enjoyed this one. I just thought it was fine. The audiobook for it, I tried to listen to the very tail end of it because I didn't like it, so it took me so long to read it. The audiobook sucks. Do not recommend. Like, read this one physically. I finished Swamp Story, and this is like every single Florida like news headline you've ever seen, absolutely ever. This was absurd. It was funny. It was weird. I think it's supposed to be a comedy, and I would definitely say it was funny. I don't know if it's like the funniest book I've ever read, but I do have a hard time like actually reading a book and thinking it's funny. But this was so bizarre. The main character, she ends up finding like a lost treasure, and I don't know if I'm just a sketchy person or what my deal is, but she goes through like all these hoops for it, and like I would just like put it in a bag and run. But I don't know. I don't know if I'd recommend this. Like, if you're looking for something just absolutely bizarre, then yeah, sure, it was fun. I love the cover of it. It's weird. I don't know. At one point, they're like trying to be this like monster thing. This guy's dressed up in a Dora Explorer costume, and they kind of mutilate it so it looks like an Everglade monster. It's a whole thing. It's super weird, but it was really fun. I read Sleep Like Death. This just came out in June, and overall, this is a pretty dark, like, YA fantasy. I liked it. Again, it was pretty dark. I didn't love every aspect of it. I thought it was a little boring, but the found family in it was just amazing, and I think if this found the right audience, someone would like it a little bit more than I did. I still rated it like 3 or 4 stars. Like, it's not bad. I wanted a little bit more from it, but kind of the more I've thought about it since reading it, I'm like, actually, this was pretty good. I definitely will read more of the author's books. There's a few of them that I've really been eyeballing. And again, this is in the same world as Cinderella Is Dead. It was good. It was fine. I would probably recommend it to quite a few people. I don't think it was perfect for me. And the last book that I physically read was Dragonfall. I own it. I cannot find it. And if I were to keep looking for it, I would never film this video. So it doesn't matter. I really enjoyed it. It was a really good fantasy book. Totally brought me out of my fantasy slump. I barely read any fantasy this year, and that's like my favorite genre. So I have just had the weirdest reading year. I feel like I haven't had any hits. And yeah, I kind of came to the conclusion, well, it's because I haven't been reading any fantasy books. So I need to fix that. So in this book, so much happens. And there's a couple spots where I'm like, I don't know if I really remember exactly what's going on, even though I like just read it in full. I didn't like stop. I wasn't even reading another book at the time. It's good. And then the ending, oh my goodness, like instantly I was like, the second book needs to be out, which actually comes out this fall, which makes me really happy because the ending was like amazing. I loved the ending. I cannot wait to see how we pick off from that, because that is going to be hopefully incredible. I'm really excited for it. The other books I read this month were all audiobooks. The first one that I listened to was Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. This was good. It wasn't mind-blowing, but it was solid, not groundbreaking. And I just think that for me, Riley Sager has always just been a good mystery author, or thriller, I think is the right word. But I haven't found anything that I'm just amazed with, but I won't give up. Anna Bright is Hiding Something. This was totally a random book for me. I had gotten invited to go to an event and I planned to go, and I even started to leave and there was an accident. It was just never going to happen. I was not going to make it to Seattle, so I had to call it, which really sucked. But I did listen to the author's book, and what we were celebrating was the paperback release. Anyways, I loved it. You're following a silicone journalist who really wants her like big piece, and she gets a chance to interview this like huge female tech woman, and this woman is kind of known for maybe being a little icy. And it was interesting to see the environment of tech in Silicon Valley and just this woman's personal story. I really liked it, and the only problem was you get this huge build up to this like big moment, and you get to really see the characters like personal morals like being involved in this situation. And it was such a flat like delivery that I just felt deflated with the story, and all the hype that we'd gotten was kind of useless. I read Not in Love this month by Ali Hazelwood. The only books I read by her are Bride and then also Check and Mate, so I didn't really know exactly what to expect. But I got to listen to this one through Libro FM. Also the Riley Sager one, if I didn't say that. But anyways, I listened to Not in Love. Immediately there's a content warning saying this is a little bit more spicy than anything she's ever written. And so I was like, oh, I don't know if this is really for me, but I was on a super long walk. And so it was nice because it was just like easily digestible. It was airy. It was whatever. It wasn't anything just like absurd. I don't know. I felt fine about it. I thought the characters had so much depth, but I didn't always understand like their chemistry. And actually, I don't know if it was depth. They have a lot of history, but they just didn't feel deep. And I think the only thing they really connected with was their trauma. And I loved the like female lead. She had so much, I think, important conversations, like when it came to her trauma and what was holding her back, but also propelling her forward. And I loved that. I think it's such a big topic, and I can't remember if it's a spoiler, and so I don't want to talk about it. But if it says it on the synopsis, or you find out really soon, I think it could be a trigger for some people. But I would still recommend it. I would give it a go if you like Ali Hazelwood, if you're okay with smut. And I liked it. I like seeing these stories that are really centered around tech. I think it's, or STEM, and in this case it happens to be tech, which is interesting. I read 2 tech books this month because I've never read any others ever. But yeah, it was good, and the audio was great. I didn't think the like narration was bad. I thought it was good, and I don't really remember anything else about it because it was kind of just digest it, and it didn't resonate in any way that was like mind-blowing. I read Infinity Sun and Infinity Reaper, which I used to own, and I just unhauled them because I didn't need to own them anymore, and my used bookstore near me is always buying YA titles, and so I was like, I'm just gonna take these in. They're both signed. I think that would be so fun to find if I was like a YA reader and I was a young adult, essentially, so I'm trying to spit out. These were good. I'm glad I finally read them. I'm okay that I like unhauled them. They weren't mind-blowing, but I'm not the target audience. I think if I would have read them like 6 years ago, they probably would have been a little bit better to me. I was surprised by some of the like mature content that was in there. I mean, it was age appropriate. I was just surprised it was in there because it was like closed door. I don't know. It was interesting. It wouldn't have been for me, and I don't know. I was surprised. I feel like a 90-year-old saying all that. Anyways, it was good. If you like Percy Jackson and like Renegades, good mix. Percy Jackson's Renegades totally hits for Infinity Sun and Infinity Reaper. Those are by Adam Silvera. They were good. The narration, I think, made the story really great too. It was very good. What I read was Feel Good Productivity. This is Ali Abdaal's first book that he came out with. I love Ali Abdaal. I've been watching him since like his medical school days. He is one of my favorite YouTubers ever. The book, I knew I was going to recognize the content. I knew that it maybe wasn't like this huge expansion of the things I already knew about him. I did feel a little bit let down, but also, honestly, he writes it, he puts it out, I'd read it, I'd watch it, whatever. Just didn't add anything extra to him or his like brand, I guess. I would look forward to see what else he came out with, especially because, you know, this could be more of like a building piece, and then whatever he comes out with next could be what I'm looking for, but that could be a great book to introduce him to a new audience. So I see its value. I see where it's at in the market. It just was a little bit of a disappointment. See how month was just kind of a flop, but there was good stuff, and I just didn't really feel very passionate about June. I think Middle Tide would be my favorite, which is surprising because I talked about how slow it is, but I definitely think there is value in just slowing down and enjoying a book, not thinking too much about it, although this did take brain power. I just mean, it doesn't always have to be the perfect book to enjoy it. And then I rereading Yellowface. It can't take a spot because that's just unfair, but I loved that. And otherwise, I really like Dragonfall. That's probably my second favorite of the month. And then my least favorite would have to be Feel Good Productivity. I was really disappointed by that. If I were to pick a not self-help book, it would probably be Middle of the Night. Even though I enjoyed it, it wasn't like the big wow factor that I wanted it to be. I really want to like Riley Sager. I have a ton of his books, so I'm going to keep reading them. And I will find my hit. I know it. That's everything that I read in June. Thank you for coming to my late June wrap up. I'm really happy that we finally got to do this. I'm going to keep reading for July, hopefully post my July wrap up a little bit sooner. And oh my goodness, I've been obsessed with my new Plume Deluxe like reading note tea. It is so good. This one has caffeine in it, and I've kind of been sipping on this one like all afternoon, so I'm a little jacked if you couldn't tell, but I've been loving it. They also have a really great like latte recipe I'm excited to try for it. But anyways, have a great rest of your July. I look forward to telling you guys all the books that I've read. I got some really amazing arcs that I cannot wait to get a chance to read, and hopefully July is a better reading month overall. Let me know what you read in June. Let me know what you're reading in July. Let me know all the things. I want to hear them all.